Today I'm joined by Dr. Gary Sprouse, the less stressed doc, to reveal how your deepest strengths might be causing your overwhelm and how to reclaim your peace without losing your edge. Let's dive in.
The majority of human stresses are really side effects to our skills. To live in all three tenses of their life, past, present, and future, and be happy in all three. And the key is just understanding that the reasons that we don't like being in the future and the past is because of the side effects. It's the worry, it's the guilt, it's the regret. Fifth problem, which is you're overwhelmed. I don't care which one of the five it is. We just get rid of one and you'll be back down to three because the overwhelm will go away.
Thank you, Dr. Gary Sprouse, for coming on from Wounds to Wisdom. We're very grateful to have you here.
I'm excited to be here. I like sharing my message because I want people to live in their happy place and be less stressed.
And you have a couple books that you've written. One thing I found interesting that you say is there is a side effect to things. So talk to me about this whole side effect thing. Explain this to me.
Wow. So I'm a primary care physician before I retired, and I was used to writing prescriptions for patients. Say, here's a medicine for your blood pressure, and it'll work great, but it might have a couple side effects, might make you dizzy, whatever. But we're going to minimize the side effects and maximize the benefit of the medicine. Well, when I turned that on to our brain, I was like, wait. The majority of human stresses are really side effects to our skills. So as humans, we have this ability to envision the future, which is phenomenal. Right? We can look a week ahead, a year ahead. We can look to when we're 65 and get to retire, right? We have all these abilities, but then the side effect is you have to worry about it. So I was telling you that my 1-year-old grandson, he doesn't worry because he doesn't have the skill of envisioning the future. So he doesn't sit at his breakfast table eating his banana going, hey, mom, dad, how are we going to pay for college? Because he doesn't have that skill. It doesn't come up. So he does what psychologists are telling us to do, which is live for today. That's what he does. But what you find is that's a really cool skill that we have. And to give it up just because it has a side effect doesn't make sense. Right. So what the book was about was how to keep the skill and lose the side effect.
So here's the thing about when you say that. So love that your grandson obviously is in the present moment. I know that there's a lot of teachers that say that we should be doing this. And also we don't really live in a world that would allow us, and I know that that's one skill that we're talking about. We'll go into other things, but we don't really live in a world that would allow us not to prepare for the future, right? Yeah.
That is correct. That's exactly. It's literally impossible to be a human being and not have the future because we spend way too much time in the future.
Oh, sorry. No, I was gonna say that's one thing that drives me insane about people like Eckhart Tolle and those people because they talk simply about being in the present moment, which I agree that we should be in at times when we as much as we can, but they don't take into consideration the survival mechanisms of the brain and how that functions so that we have to be able to plan for the future as well.
Absolutely. One of the things that I talk about is I want people to be able to live in all three tenses of their life, past, present, and future, and be happy in all three. And the key is just understanding that the reasons that we don't like being in the future and the past is because of the side effects. It's the worry, it's the guilt, it's the regret. There's ways to have less of that. And that's what my book's about.
So give us some ideas of how can we have less. I can understand about having less guilt about the past because that, I mean, you go through the process of understanding you made the best choices that you could make and da 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 and all that stuff. How do we not have the worry about the future?
Here's the first question that I ask people. So I've had patients come to me and say, Dr. Sprouse, I worry that I worry too much. I'm like, well, then you probably do, right?
I know this good, yeah.
And so what I said to that person, I was like, well, tell me what worry is. But when she started trying to define it, it got sticky. It was not so easy to define. Most people sort of struggle with trying to define it in concrete terms. Even if you have some kind of usable definition, it's not a fixable definition. So I had to come up with a definition that you could do something about. So the definition that I use is, okay, we're using this human skill that's amazing that allows us to envision the future. Yay. Okay. Second is then we focus on all the bad things that can happen. One of the books that I had read calls it what ifing. So it's like, well, what if this happens? And then the key to worry is that then based on that what if, you're now having a physiological reaction. You're having a fear response. And it can be from a mild anxiety all the way up to a full panic attack. But the key is that it's only to a thought. It's a concept. It's not a reality. So that makes it difficult for humans. So I look at my dog, and when a big dog runs into the neighborhood, into our yard, she smells it or hears it, and she's like, "Arr!" And she's all jazzed up and ready to fight. But as soon as that dog leaves her senses, she goes back to being a rug. But I can go, oh, what if I was outside? What if I had my 1-year-old grandson with me? Right? So I can, what if? And there's nothing to make that stop. For my dog, the fear reaction goes away when this sensory system changes. For me, I can just think of big dog in my yard and right? And so there's nothing to make that stop. So we have to find ways to worry. So what I tell people is, I don't want you to stop worrying completely, but I do want you to worry efficiently. So there's 2 tools that I talk about that are the easy ones. There's other tools, but those are the 2 main ones that I talk about. So humans also have the ability to have choice. So we have a tendency, there's actually a built-in tendency to look for the negative things. It's one of the ways we can stay safe.
Right.
So if I had 10 people in this room that were trying to give me $100, but there was one guy in the corner with a machine gun, I'm going to pay attention to the guy with the machine gun, because if I don't pick him up, the $1,000 that I get isn't going to do me any good. So there's a tendency to look for negative stuff, but we have a choice. So we don't have to focus on the negative things. We can focus on the positive things. So I was just doing a talk yesterday for some high schoolers, and I was like, don't focus on, I'm going to fail the test. Focus on, I'm going to pass the test, right? Because that makes you feel better. Because when you focus on, I'm going to fail the test, it sets off a fear reaction, which makes you actually not be able to think as much. When a lot of people have test taking anxiety, it's because they're focused on failing, and there's literally their fear gets turned on. And I was reading this in one book, and it said, when our fear system gets turned on, it literally shuts off our thinking part of our brain.
Right.
And you need that to take a test, right? So if you focus on passing the test, you're going to feel much more relaxed, a lot less fear, and you're going to be more confident, and you'll do better on the test. But here's the key. You have to be realistic. You can't just go into the test and go, oh, I'm just going to pass the test. And like, I just am, right? I'm really smart. No, you have to prepare and get ready. So that's the realism part. So as an author, I chose not to focus on, hey, I might not be a successful author. I chose, I'm going to be a successful author. But I realized that most authors don't make a living out of their books. So I had to keep being a doctor until I retired. And then I could focus all my energy on that book. And that's what I've been doing. And so realistic optimism becomes a way to have fun in your life and then look forward to things. But the realism part leads to the second tool that I talk about, and that's called a worry organizer. The first thing I find is that by writing something down, it already makes it better. It makes you focus on what you're writing, but it also frees up your mind, because what most people are doing is half their brain is trying to remember what they're supposed to worry about. So if it's written down, then all of your brain can be used to solve the issues in front of you, right? And by writing it down, it becomes permanent. So I don't have to go over and over and over and over again. If I don't have anything new to add to that, we're just going to leave it go.
I do that.
So
I have the notes app open all the time on my phone. I just write stuff down. The funny thing is I don't even look at it most of the time.
Yeah, well, that's okay. But as long as it's there, you're not worried about it, right? You don't go, oh, I forgot. Right?
So I know that you co-wrote, did an anthropology with Jack Canfield, which a lot of the stuff that he teaches in his books sound very similar to yours, except for he does teach that instead of writing down the stuff that's in your head, you write down the things that you want, almost like a manifestation tool.
Yeah.
How do you differ in the approaches that you have to somebody like him who has all of these books out there and has been teaching this kind of stuff?
Yeah, well, he actually read my book, Highway to Your Happy Place, Roadmap to Less Stress. And he said he gave me a quote, which was like, this has game-changing ideas. This is a must read. So even he, who had sold 500 million books, he got something out of his book that was different. And I think the difference is our tools got so much better. So what I think my book, how it differs from every other book that's out there, is it says, hey, the cause of our stress is these side effects. So we need to know what the skills are, what the side effects are, and then the tools that we fashion will fix the problem way more efficiently. Because most books that are out there on how to handle stress say things like, here's the top 100 stresses: losing your spouse, losing your job, right? Getting a medical illness. But then their prescriptions are generic. They go, okay, well, do yoga or go to church or pray or whatever. And it's like, it's not that they don't work. It's that they're very generic. It's like telling a diabetic, we'll eat less sugar. But if with the things that I'm talking about, they're way more specific and I think are way more efficient. So Dr. Jack Canfield talks more about how to have success.
Right.
I'm coming from a different angle. I'm going, you can be successful, but you have to have less stress to get there because
Mm.
there's a lot of stress in life. And I think, unfortunately, in a lot of ways, it's getting worse.
Right. It's getting significantly worse, in my opinion. And that stress, because it is in our minds all of the times and stuff, is holding us back from doing the things that we could be doing. Is that the
Yeah.
thought? Yeah.
Yes. Wow. So one of the things that I think has made our stresses worse is social media.
Yeah.
In that, okay, so social media is this amazing tool that we have, right? It's incredible. It has incredible power, but again, it has side effects.
Yeah.
It has this incredible power to galvanize people, to organize people, to get ideas out there. But what's one of the side effects is it also gives us these never-ending pictures of bad things that can happen.
Mm-hmm.
So it used to be that I had to think up something bad to worry about it. But now anybody in the world can think up something and then show it on my phone or on my TV. And
Right.
I'm like, oh my God, I didn't even think about that. Then what happens is we have more and more and more information that we can then use in our negative outcomes and then focus on that. And that's what gets us into trouble. And so social media is still in its infancy. And I think somewhere along the line, we're going to figure out how to balance the benefits of social media and reduce some of the side effects of it. Well, one of the ways we can do it now is just limit how much time you spend on social media.
Yeah.
So, like my stepdad, he watches news 24/7. I'm like, stop it.
Yeah.
It does stuff to you. Like, that's not good, right? You're watching people burn up and planes crash and governments fall and wars and like it does stuff to you. I came up with this term the other day and I call it stress blindness. See this with the cat lady who has 50 cats who can't smell how bad the smell house smells, right? Because she's
Right.
gotten so used to it, we call it nose blindness, right? What I realize is people have stress blindness. They don't realize how stressed that they are because it just became part of their background.
Right.
So one of the things that I learned when I was in school, I was driving to Washington, D.C. That's where I went to school. And on a night, it would take me 15 minutes to get there. In the daytime with traffic, it would take an hour. And if there was rain or an accident, it took 2 hours. And I didn't realize how physiologically stressed out that made people, including
Mhm.
me, right? Until I moved and now I live on a more rural area. So when I drive back into the city and I end up in a little bit of traffic, I'm like, oh, right. I don't like it, right? But I didn't even realize, I'm sure my body was doing that. I just didn't even realize because it was just part of the background. We're so used to it that we don't even see it. And I think TV does that when it's running 24/7. We don't even realize that seeing somebody get blown up on TV actually affects us inside.
Yeah, and I feel like the children nowadays, because there's so much like violence in video games, TV, there's a lot more sexual, stuff on TV, and they become, this is normalized to them. And
Yeah.
so, like if you watch movies, they're just like, I don't, I remember the days where there was like, they didn't show the outcome of like a gunshot like they do now, right? Like an outcome of a gunshot now, like there's brains all over the place. Like half the time I can't watch it because I'm like, this is disgusting. But they're used to seeing this younger generation and it's getting worse and worse. So they're becoming desensitized to these types of things, which normally they're, like you said, they're in the background. The mind's going like, what can I do? Now I'm in trouble, but stressing out the mind in the background, but they don't realize that they're what's going on.
Well, I agree that I think what you're saying is accurate, but there is a side to that, which is it gives people a avenue to take out their aggressions that don't have to take it out on a person. Like they can
Mm.
take it out on their game or watch the movie and get their aggressions out that way. So there is a little bit of benefit to it, but I'm not sure the benefit is worth all the other stuff that you just talked about.
I have a question on that then, because like I have an 11-year-old son. And for the longest time, I was opposed to him playing any game that had violence in it, right? He was allowed to play like, Minecraft, but couldn't use guns and these kinds of things. And then you have these kids now, they're playing, games that have shooting and all of these different things. And I would get such a hard time from his friends' parents saying that, I'm isolating him too much. All of these kids play all of these games. And then they would tell him the same thing. And so he's coming home saying, my friends are all playing this, and I'm like the bad mom and all of these things. And so, what is your take on, with all of your knowledge about this, they're like, okay, they can play, but maybe they can play an hour a week. I mean, what's your take on that? Just
Right.
curiosity.
So do you have daughters?
I have a daughter too, yeah.
Okay. Does she do the same thing?
No, she's
No.
not interested in
Okay.
that at all.
So I had some friends that had two sons, right? And they made the kind of decision you made. This was before video games.
Hmm.
So they were like, you can't have any toy guns, you can't have this, you can't that. And then they woke up one day and their kids were shooting each other with a chair leg. And
Yes,
you're like,
they'll find any way.
yeah, exactly, right.
Yeah.
So they're going to find a way to get out that aggression. There was a book that I'd read is that humans play is for us to learn our skills as to be adults. I think that play is their way of learning the skills that it's going to take to be an adult in a world that doesn't exist anymore, right? I mean, we're not, tribes anymore, but it's like, but it's the same idea and it's that skill set. So I would say to you, don't, I mean, what's happening is your kids are getting ostracized because they're
Right,
not playing a game with everybody else. And so I don't think it's worth all that, but I would definitely put some kind of limits on it.
right.
Two reasons. One, because you don't need all that violence, but two, so many kids have, and we use the word addiction, but I have a whole different term for that. I call it stress reducer loop. But the idea is that they're playing too much so
Right.
that it's like causing troubles in their life. They're not studying, they're not sleeping, they're not
Yeah.
eating right because they're so busy playing a game. So limiting how much time they have, using it as a reward, yeah, that might be a better way to go.
Yeah, like that game in and of itself, we limit to an hour a week. And then he's limited on the other stuff, but that in particular game, so at least he gets to play it, right?
Yep.
And so, I mean, I know that that's kind of outside of the conversation and stuff, but I think that these are real world things that people
Yeah.
going through, and your amount of information and knowledge that you have is important for us to, kind of to ask these things.
Yeah. Well, I think by giving them a limit, because if you just say no, you can't do it, he's going to find a way to do it.
Right. He's like, you can go to a friend's house or
Right.
something.
Then because then he ends up, he's going to lie to you or he's going
Yeah.
to do something else that you really don't want. So rather than saying you can't do it, I'd still just put limits on it.
Yeah.
That's what I would say. So,
What other real world like situations that like, obviously stress is a real world thing, but the day-to-day things that we encounter in our life that you feel like your thought process method and all of that that you talk about would be applicable towards that would be like a daily thing that we all go through.
wow. So one of the things that I see is a lot of the patients that would come to me, they were coming for high blood pressure and diabetes, but really what was happening was they were feeling overwhelmed.
Hmm.
They were feeling like they had too much stuff going on and they didn't know how to cope with it. And what I see is when people are overwhelmed, like you have one or two or three problems, but then that fourth one comes along and you go from, okay, I can handle this to, oh my God, what am I going to do? Right.
Right.
And so when they feel overwhelmed, all kinds of things happen. As a medical doctor, we got trained that when people come to you and they go, hey, I can't sleep, or I sleep too much, or I can't eat, or I ate too much, and I just don't feel like living in life. And we would call that and label it depression. And then we were taught, okay, depression is a chemical imbalance in your brain. So the way to fix that is to give you another chemical to fix that balance, and then you'll be better.
Right.
And what I found in my practice was two things. One, I'd give people the medicine and they wouldn't get that much. They'd get a little better, but not a lot better, right? So what I found was when I found my patients and they're depressed, what I said, no, 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 no. You're not depressed. You're overwhelmed. You just have too much stuff going on. And what I show them is this curve where I said three problems, you're okay. The fourth problem, whoop, now you're in trouble.
Yeah.
And then the fourth problem creates a fifth problem, which is you're overwhelmed. So what I say to them is it's not as bad as you think, because it seems when you're overwhelmed, you're like, there's no answer. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. How am I going to fix this? What I show them is like, hey, you know what? We only need to get rid of one problem. I
Mm.
don't care which one of the five it is. We just get rid of one and you'll be back down to three because the overwhelm will go away and you'll be back to feeling in control. So it's not that bad. It's not a lifelong chemical imbalance that you have to take a medicine forever. We just have to get one around these problems. And I give them tools on how to do that. So by what I find is when people get overwhelmed, they don't even know what to do. A lot of people just tend to withdraw. People have this tendency, and I'm not sure why we do this, but we lump. And we go, oh, I got this problem and this problem. Oh, yeah, and I forgot. Yeah, let me throw that one on top. And then I got this little thing through. And they get this big mass of crap. And they're like, that gets overwhelming. And they're like, what do I do? Ah, right, because I got this big mass. So my answer to lumping is compartmentalization. So the more separate we keep these individual problems, then the less overwhelming they become. So what I give them is this visual of shoe boxes. So if I walked into my bedroom and there was 100 shoe boxes and the bottom was here and the top was there and the left shoe was there and the right was there and there's 100, right? You're caulking going, oh my God, what am I supposed to do with this, right? But if I walk into that room and the box is there and the shoes are inside, the lid's on, and they're all stacked up in the closet, it's the same amount of shoe boxes. But when I walk in, I'm not overwhelmed now.
Right.
And if I take one shoe box down, look at it and fiddle with it, put it back up, take another, yeah, that's not so overwhelming. Still a lot of problems, but it's not overwhelming. So when I hear people lumping, I go, shoebox, right? And that triggers them to go, oh yeah, keep them separate.
Like when you say that, what comes to my mind is like laundry. Okay. We wash all this laundry. Nobody likes to fold it. So you just like
Hmm.
pile it, pile it, pile it. And then you look at it and you're like, oh my gosh. And then it's like an eyesore, right? And so
Yeah.
you're just like avoiding it. I'm going to go on social media. I'm going to go do this. I'm just
Yeah.
going to ignore this
Yeah.
laundry like it's going to
Yes,
go
there
away.
you go.
But what we figured out is like if we take the laundry out and then we put it into piles, like on whose is what, then it's not as hard because it's like, okay,
Yeah.
that's the son, that's the
Yes.
daughters, that's the husbands, that's the wives, and those are the towels. So now you take care of your stuff over here, you take care of your stuff over here, and then that big pile of laundry actually isn't as bad because you've separated it out, right?
Yeah. Am I allowed to use yours now? Maybe I have to
Yes,
change
please
and have
do.
my
Yeah.
laundry
Yeah.
analogy instead of a shoebox. I don't know.
Yes, I love that, right? Because even with like the shoebox thing, like you could go like, okay, well, if I have 100 shoes I got to put away, that's going to be a lot. So I'm going to put the blues in one pile, the reds in one pile, the greens in this pile, right? And so I'll do it that way. But you got to break it down, like you said.
Yeah, there you
Yeah,
go.
I love that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Visualizations, I think, help people.
yes, I learned that from somebody who was like, we can learn concepts, but we're much better when we have something that we can visualize.
And the overwhelm is so true. I do think that that's why social media has gotten so out of control because we are using it to numb because we're trying to avoid the stuff that is, like the fourth thing that you were talking about, the fourth problem. We're trying to avoid it. The one thing that when you were saying you write a list, my mind immediately goes to a list of stuff to do. I don't need a list of stuff to do, right?
Really?
So that like as soon as you say list, I'm like, do you know how much I have on my list? Like my list can feel like pages of just shit to do, right? So it's like when you say a list, it triggers something in my mind of like,
But
I
that's
don't
because
want
you're
to
not
write
using the
another
list
list.
right. That's
That's why
it. You
I'm not
check your
using the
list
list.
off?
Huh?
You check your list off?
I cross them off as I do them, yes.
Okay, but so when you're making a list, first off, then you don't have to remember stuff, right?
Yeah.
So that makes it easier because now you have more brain power because you don't worry about, oh, I forgot to do something because it's written down, number
Yeah.
one. Number two, when you cross it off, what? That's 5 points of pleasure right there. Cross it off. I was talking to my friend about this, and she's a college professor. And I said something about lists. She goes, oh my God, I love lists. And I'm like, what? So she makes a list of everything. And she goes, I'll cross it off. And she goes, I'll go back 5 days. Cause like, you say, I'm going to call this person and you call them
Right.
and they don't answer. So it's still on the list, right? She goes, no, I'll go back 5 days and cross it off when I finally talk. She goes, oh, I get so much pleasure out of that. It's great,
Yeah.
right? So you
I
just
do
got to
agree
use
with
the
that.
list in the right way. That's all, right?
And I think like it's kind of funny to go down this path, but like so I like to cross it off. That's a big thing. And I will go back and cross off my list too. The problem is I have like a list here. I have lists in here. I have like lists
Yeah.
everywhere, right?
Yeah.
So it just I think you do have to combine them into one type of thing. So they're just not like I have lists everywhere, which shape or form I go.
Well, so I don't know about you, but I mean, I see you using books. I use my phone because my phone's with me all the time. It's like
Yeah.
attached to my underwear. In that list, there's like, and I've actually found like I'll write a list out one day because like in the way my mind works, it's like I'll be sleeping and wake up and go, oh yeah, and then I'll add it to the list because if I don't add it to the list, like by the morning, I'll have forgotten what it was that I was supposed to read, right? And so by having the list, then I can go back and go, yeah, I did that, right? Cross things off, add things on. So I was just at a Rotary meeting yesterday and I added 3 things to the list, but it's all in one place. So I don't have it like 5 different places and it's all on my phone. So it's right there, but it's under like an app and I don't have to look at it every single day. I mean, because it also makes me wonder if you're looking at that list and feeling like a little overwhelmed
Yeah, duh.
and a little yeah, guilty that you're not getting the stuff done.
Mhm.
So
Well,
yeah, do what you do with your laundry. Just take one thing and get it done, right? I think the list will actually help you. You just need to put them all in one place, scratch them off, get the pleasure from that, not get overwhelmed by the list because even though you might have a lot of things to do, prioritize your list, put different colors on them. So these are things that need to be done now. These are things that can be done, whatever. So on my list is write the second book, right? It's called Being Kind of a Highway to Your Happy Place, mile marker 2, right? That's on my list, but obviously that's not going to happen tomorrow, right?
Right.
So
So maybe you put like write a chapter by
yes, that
XYZ
would make
date,
sense. Yes,
right? Because then you're breaking it down
yes.
on that. It's funny, I do actually I have a whiteboard that has various different colors that say like what I'm supposed to be now, what I'm supposed to do later, and now it's
There
just
you
sitting
go.
there and it's like a month old of stuff I just still have on my list.
Yeah, well, and that happens, but I mean, that's what Canfield's book's about, is how to not let that happen. So that
Yeah.
you're taking actionable things. He wants things that are actionable. He wants things that are measurable, right? That
Hmm.
kind of stuff. So
Yeah, he does say that too. You're fun. I don't know if you hear that a lot, but you're fun. I
we haven't
enjoy
even gotten to the happy place yet.
Okay, well tell us the happy place.
I was talking to my patients. They're like, I go, hey, I'm writing this book on how to have less stress. And they're like, oh, I need that book. Every single person I've ever said it to. And I go, there's like 300 books out there, maybe 1,000, right? Have you read any of them? And I'll
No, it
give them
causes me
the,
too much stress to think
yeah,
about
exactly, right?
it.
So I'll give them the book and I'll talk to them a couple months later. So what you think? And they're like, oh, I haven't had a chance to read it yet. I'm like, well, it's not going to get in your head by just sitting on your coffee table, right? But then I said to them, well, look, where would you be if you had less stress? And they looked at me like, I don't know. I only got as far as wanting to have less stress. I never really thought about where that would put me, right? So it got me thinking that, wait, we need a destination. And this came up because my wife and I did this diet called Optavia. I don't know if you've ever heard of it or not, but
Yeah.
what he talks about is not saying don't go to a weight. You want to be healthy. Because if you go, for me, I wanted to be 180 pounds. If you put that as your goal, when you get to the 180, then you're going to stop doing the things that got you to 180 because you met your goal, right? So he says, instead of doing that, think I want to be healthy. And by being healthy, you get to that weight, but then you're committed to staying there because you want to be healthy, not 180 pounds, right? So I did the same thing. If I had people have less stress, but they don't know where they want to be, they're going to be in the same place. They're going to do less stress, but then they're going to stop the things they did to be in less stress.
Hmm.
So I said, we need to come up with a place that you're going to go to. And that became the happy place, right? I realized that everybody's happy place is different. So my wife and I have very different happy places. Like I like the beach. I like hanging out on the beach and the sun and the suntan waves, right? My wife thinks the beach is a big kitty litter box. And I'm like, yeah, that's not going to work, is it, right? So here's what I realized is that even though our happy places have different variations, they have the same rooms. They have the same places. So they have the same kitchen. They all have a dining room. They all have a living room. They're decorated differently, but they all have the same rooms. So then I was like, well, what are the rooms of people's happy places, right? So here's the list. So the first one is gratitude. So we need to be grateful. And I'm not just mean a little grateful, grateful for everything because we tend to take for granted a lot of stuff.
Hmm.
So my wife and I got to go to Germany on a vacation and we're in this beautiful castle, right? It's huge, it's beautifully decorated. Yeah, but it didn't have air conditioning. It didn't have windows. It didn't have indoor plumbing. It was like,
Oh,
wait, what? Like I'm living better than the king of Germany was 300 years ago by far, not even close, right? They didn't have cars, TVs, refrigerator. Like, no, we have all the stuff that
right.
we just take for granted. So we have to be grateful for that. And when you're grateful, it's hard to be upset. Some bad thing happens, you're like, oh, but look, all these other things, right? Second is then pleasure. And what I see is that humans were designed to have pleasure, but they were little pleasures, like a little, like, oh, I found some extra berries, or I caught a fish today, right? We've tended to make it into these big things like, oh, I got married, or I graduated, or I passed the test. I'm like, no, we need to go back to where it was. So I think of that pleasure as a jigsaw, 1,000 piece jigsaw puzzle, right? So every piece is like, ooh, a little zing. Oh, oh, I got a piece. Oh, I got another piece. Oh, I got. So you get 999 little zings of pleasure.
Hmm.
But then at the end, you get a big pleasure because now the puzzle's together. You're like, whoa, right? But 999 times you go, ooh, that was nice. If you fill your day with those little pleasures, wow, what a nice thing. Then you don't wait for that big pleasure to come along because that sometimes it could be disappointing. It might not be as good as you thought, right?
Real quick on that. Do you think people have forgotten what pleasure feels like?
Well, I think they've changed it from these little pleasures to
To
this
big.
big pleasure. So what happens is, I'm going to retire. Well, that's years away,
Right.
right? It's gonna, and it might not be as great as you think, right? I think we have ignored those little pleasures
I agree.
because we've taken them for granted. I'll give you an example. When I was a kid, I had a car and it had roll windows, like, right? I'm like, what is it? No, my kids would like not even know what that is, right?
I
Yeah,
know you tell
good,
somebody to
right?
roll down
Okay.
a window, you still use your
Yes, right,
hand, right?
exactly, right. So I'm rolling down the window and the handle breaks. And I'm like, what? So then I had this little knob. So every time I wanted to raise the window or lower it, I had to like turn the knob like this. So when I finally got to the auto parts store and bought a crank, it was like, oh my God, this is so nice, right? Yeah. So those are the kinds of things that we tend to ignore because we just push a button and the window goes down. What nice is that, right? So then the next thing is anticipation pleasure. And that's using our skill of envisioning the future. But now we're anticipating things that are going to happen. So my wife and I are going to go to Greece with some friends. In my anticipation, it's like, oh, this is going to be great. Greece is going to be beautiful. The airplane's going to be fine. My luggage is going to get there. At the end of the vacation, my friends are still going to be my friends. Yay, right? So I have pleasure in my pocket. All I got to do is think about Greece. I'm like, oh, a little jolt of pleasure, right? And then we have fulfillment. So fulfillment is a combination of things, and it's about learning. So humans are very curious. Like we're way more curious than every other animal. And we had to be because we had to go around in our environment to find food and to make sure we were safe. So it's built into our DNA to find curiosity pleasurable. So we like learning. So we need to do that. That is part of fulfillment. Second is sharing. So we're a group organism. Like we don't have the best claws, we don't have the best vision, we're not the fastest animal, but we work in a group really well. So in a group, we can take down a woolly mammoth. What? Right? So in a group, sharing then becomes important. So it's built into our DNA to find sharing pleasurable. So when I have something extra, I have a couple extra berries and I give them to you, that makes me feel good. Plus it makes you not hungry because now you got some extra berries. But when you have some extra fish and I don't have any berries, you're giving me some fish. Oh, okay. So sharing is built into our DNA. And the third thing is purpose. And every other organism out there finds purpose by staying alive. That's their goal. For humans, I wake up in the morning like, okay, I'm still here, right? Like it's not that big a deal, right?
Isn't that funny? It's so true, right?
Right. Some people wake up and go, ugh, I'm still here, right?
Yeah.
So staying alive isn't enough of a purpose anymore to jazz us up. It doesn't get us excited to get up in the morning going, woohoo, I'm still alive, right?
Right.
So we've had to find other things to give us purpose, to give us that feeling of excitement when you get up in the morning. So for me, being a doctor was that. Like I was excited every day I got up to help somebody, blah, blah, blah. And I realized that when I stopped being a doctor, a lot of doctors get into trouble because they don't know what to do themselves. But I had this book. So it turns out I'm doing the same thing. I'm helping people, but instead of with a stethoscope and a prescription pad, I'm using a book, but I'm doing the same thing. So I still get jazzed up. I get to be on Barbie's web, her podcast. Yes, right.
I know you woke up this morning, you're like, this is the best
I
thing that
did.
ever happened to
It
me.
was on my calendar. I was like, yes, all right. My wife, she struggled, right? So she did the billing in my office. She hated it. So I would say, honey, you don't need to do this. We can hire somebody to do what you're doing. And her answer, yeah, well, I'm not doing a good job.
Oh
And I'm
no.
like, yeah,
You
you
stepped
got
in it, huh?
there's no one in that one, right? Anyway, so when I retired, she finally got to stop doing the billing. But here's her problem. So now she gets up and we're like, what do I do with myself? And she's
That's
really
what-
struggling because she doesn't know what to do with herself now, even though she hated the billing, gave her something to do. Now, it's been a year, and so she's had time now. She's a beekeeper and she's working at a charity. And we found a church where they play cards on Monday night, and she's got in a book club. So you can start seeing the pieces coming. So she's like, oh, today's book club. All right. And so she's reading a book. So she's getting there. There is a thing called ikigai. So ikigai is a Japanese term. And what it says is fill out these 4 circles. And it's like, what am I good at? What do I like to do? What can I make money at? And what will help my community? And when you fill out the blocks where they intersect, that's your ikigai. That's your purpose. And you're like, so for me, it was easy, right? My purpose was real easy, helping people, writing this book, going out there, being on podcasts, right? Doing talks. Yeah, that became real easy for me. And she's now starting to figure it out, right?
Don't you feel like people are so overwhelmed they don't even have, like they're just surviving, right? So their work is not their purpose because their work has to pay the bills. Their children are not their purpose because at this point they're a liability and a burden because they cost them much money and they're just trying to pay their bills. Like that people just, and I know that this is a tool like to teach people to have a purpose, but I find like in general, most people are just so overwhelmed that they can't even find these things.
You are correct. When people are overwhelmed, they tend to shut down and they can't do the things that I'm talking about. But one of the reasons they get overwhelmed is because they haven't done. So when I'm talking to my stepson in Atlanta with his 120 animals, he's clearly overwhelmed. And I say to him, so what's your goal? He doesn't know.
Yeah.
Like, where do you want to be? What's your purpose? He doesn't know. So he's gone from job to job, and he's been doing, and this is where I find people get into trouble. You mentioned kids. We tend to focus on the negative part of our kids. Oh, they
Yeah.
cost money, they're pains in the butt, police them. And like,
You
no,
have to
but
be
there's a good
nice.
part of our kids too, right? I mean, they're really nice, right? Like, there's a reason we have kids. They're cool, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things that I find is when people are focused on, like I said to my stepson, he was working as a bartender and he was upset, he was miserable. And I'm like, dude, go to work, change. That's where the book Mindset Matter comes in,
Yeah.
right? Change your mindset. I said, go to work, think of all the good things that are going to happen when you go to work and how much fun it's going to be, and you're going to meet somebody new, blah, blah, right? He came back that night and he was miserable. I'm like, what happened? He goes, I didn't do a single thing you said. And I was miserable and I got no tips because people figured out I was miserable. And I'm like, yeah, see? So mindset really matters. Like, instead of focusing on the negative things that are going on with his work or with your kids or with whatever your work or whatever, focus on the part that's good. And that makes you feel good right now, which then makes it easier to get up in the morning and do stuff.
And that goes back to your other steps, gratitude, having that whole pocket thing you talked about. Like they all work together.
That is exactly right. So the last room is what I call cash. And I was talking to these high schools, like, no, I'm not giving you cash. It's
Dang it. I was kind of
acronym,
hoping
right?
for a Zell.
Yeah, I know, right? Get yourselves out, right? Anyway, so CASH is an acronym and it stands for being connected and feeling in control because we like that, right? We like being connected. And then the A is for accepted and being appreciated. And that's where parents get into trouble. Is a lot of times they don't feel appreciated. Like,
Right.
they're putting out all this effort for their kids and they don't appreciate it. Like, my kids will say, Dad, what have you ever done for me? And I'm like, are you kidding
Are
me?
you breathing right now?
Yes, exactly. Like, before you were born, I was doing stuff for you, right? Yeah, yeah. So what we do in our head is like, well, I know they appreciate it, but and what I tell people is appreciation was the original currency. Think about this. Before we had money and wampum and whatever else we used, right? Appreciation was the currency. So if you did something nice for me, I said, thank you so much. That was nice. And that makes people feel good.
Yeah.
It makes you feel good for saying it, makes them really feel good. If you say it genuinely, man, that it's worth more than money can be, right? And it's like, it's free. It doesn't
Mhm.
cost anything. You can just do it whenever, right? How nice is that, right? Then the S is for feeling safe because we all want to feel safe. And the other S is for spiritual, right? And I had to add that in there because I realized there was a book I'd read that said our brain really has four parts. There's a thinking part and an emotional part, a daredevil part, and there's the spiritual part. It's like we feel connected with the universe, right?
Mhm.
And I think that religions tap into that part of our brain because that part of our brain gets overrun by the thinking part and by the emotional part and by the daredevil part. So when it gets tapped into, it's a really
Mhm.
nice feeling. And some of the drugs that we take, some of the psilocybins and things like that, stimulate that part of our brain, which is why they
Mhm.
become so powerful, but also so wanted, right? Because
Right.
that is such a great feeling. And then the last one is humor and hope. And humor I had to add because I hadn't really thought about humor, but humor, like we've been doing this today, right? Like, we're taking these situations, like I'm sure you're having struggles with your son and his gaming, and it's like, but we talked about it humorously, so then it wasn't as bad, right?
Right. Right.
And
Right.
so
I
we
love that.
take these mundane things in our life and turn them into humor, and then it's like, oh, it's not that bad, right? And then hope is critical. And what I find with my patients is patients always will come in and go, my life sucks. And you're like, okay, what's going to happen? They're like, oh, well, it might get better if I do this or I do that, or when I retire, or when my kids grow up and go away, or whatever, right? So they have hope because they're using the future to go, well, it sucks now, but it's going to get better. When people lose their hope, that's dangerous, literally dangerous. That's
Yeah,
when
that's
people
the
start thinking
suicide.
about committing
Yeah.
suicide, right? They
Yeah.
go, like, my life sucks and it's never going to get better. And you're like, whoa, oh, that's bad. Because if it's never going to get better, then what's the point, right?
Mhm.
I have a patient that I saw, she was like 17, 18 years old, right? I'm walking into the room to see her because I got assigned her case. And the psychiatrist walking out because he's already seen her. And he's like, yeah, don't waste your time on her. There's nothing you can do to fix her. And I'm like, whoa, from a
That's like
psychiatrist.
aggressive, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Right. I was like, man, how bad is this lady? Right. So I go, what's up? She goes, my life sucks and it's never going to get better. And I go, well, what makes your life suck? She goes, well, I got a shitty boyfriend and my dad is a pain in the butt and I work, but I have to give all my money to my mom and she uses to buy drugs. And I'm like,
Geez.
wait, okay, that sounds pretty bad, right? Well, let's back up a second. I go, let me get this straight. So you've worked for 2 years and you've given all your money to your mom. So you've basically worked for free for 2 years. She's like, well, yeah. And I go, you know how amazing that is? Like, what are you going to do when you actually make money for yourself? How freaking nice is that going to be, right? And I go, so you have this boyfriend? And he go, yeah, he's a pain in the butt. And I go, well, do you have sex with him? She goes, well, yeah. I go, well, do you like it? She goes, well, yeah. I'm like, well, there you are. So you're having sex and it's great, right? And I go, so you're living with your dad and he's a pain in the butt. And like, yeah. And I go, but you're living in a house, right? She goes, well, yeah, because I had to live on the street for a while and that was way worse. And I'm like, so your life doesn't suck that bad. I'm like, and what keeps you, why can't you get a better job? She goes, well, I don't have a GED. I'm like, well, what keeps you from getting a GED? She goes, well, I go to school. I think I'm smart enough, but then I get frustrated and I don't do the tests, and so then I fail. And I'm like, oh, okay. So it's in your control. You have enough brain power. You just need to focus and get the test done and get your GED, and then a world of opportunities will open up. So I walked out of the room a half an hour later, and she had a big smile on her face. She was like, let me out. I'm ready to go. I'm like, the psychiatrist is ready to write her off. I'm like, all it took was changing her mindset, her viewpoint, and going, my life doesn't suck as bad as I thought. And I got things I can do to make it better.
Sadly, the psychiatrist might have given her depression medications because she's
Absolutely. I'm
gotten
sure he
depressed,
did. I
right?
have no doubt that he would have given her depression medicine.
Yeah. Whereas you're giving life tools that actually last.
Well, because I'm coming from a different point of view. Like
Right.
that's what and I don't fault doctors. That's what they're
No,
trained. They're
that's
trained
what
to
they're
do
trained.
that.
Yeah.
What I want to do is change their training and go,
Mhm.
stop calling people depressed, call them overwhelmed. And your treatment is very different. So if you say someone's depressed and they're chemically imbalanced, would make sense you give them a medicine, right? If you think they're overwhelmed, then that doesn't make any sense at all for the long term. Maybe short term to get them through some
Right.
of that sadness so they go have an energy to solve the problems that they have. But helping them solve their problems is going to be way more effective in fixing the problem.
I love that. If people want to take all of your wisdom, which I really thoroughly enjoyed everything that you shared, how can they find you?
Right. So I have a website, thelessstressdoc.com. And on that website, there's stuff about me, but there's also a chapter. They can download the chapter on worry. So if they don't have enough money to buy the book, just download the chapter and read that. What I tell people is you have an opportunity to buy the book. It's on Amazon, it's on Barnes and Noble. It came out an audiobook a couple months ago. I just got a check on my audiobook. I'm like, what? Like people are buying the audiobook, which is what I've learned is that's why I did the audiobook. People like hearing the book. They're using it in their car when they're
Right.
driving. I was like, yes, that was exciting, right?
Did you
And
do
I
your own audio? Did you ever
yes, I
do that?
did, right?
Good, because your voice, like it would be enthusiastic, right? Like so
It
you,
was like that,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly. I love
They
that.
apparently when the guy sent it back to him, he modulated a little bit, so it took a little bit of the enthusiasm out, but whatever.
You're like, don't take away
Yeah,
the
I know,
fun.
exactly. Yeah. I don't want to sound like an AI robot, right?
Thank you.
Well, thank you for having me on here. The last message I give to patients is, or people, sorry. My wife says I have to call them clients now. I was
Well,
like,
whatever.
yeah, do not resign yourself to being stressed out. Like
Mm,
there's answers, there's ways out of that. You don't have to live your life that way, but you do have to do something to get there.
yeah, definitely. You can't just sit there and ignore the world.
Yes.
Yes, love it. Appreciate you.
Thank you so
Grateful for
much.
our time.
Sure.
And thank you.